Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we are diving into a topic that touches millions of lives. And we're not looking at it in the usual way because diabetes is not just a disease. It's a problem that can be solved. A problem sitting right at the core of the body's energy system. And I guarantee you, once you see it through this new lens, everything changes. This video is brought to you by Cure University, or more popularly referred to as Cure U, where we believe that the right information has the ability to cure you. This is the first in a video series of understanding diabetes, its prevention and its reversal, and we're gonna hop right in. So we're gonna start right here because this one idea, ladies and gentlemen, flips the entire script. You see, we've been told for years that diabetes is all about sugar. Sugar in the blood, sugar on the plate, sugar everywhere. But what if sugar is just the symptom? What if the real root cause is something much deeper? Not the glucose, not the fuel itself, but how the body is handling that fuel. You see, that shift is key to understanding diabetes. It's the key to preventing it and the key to reversing it. So to understand this, we've got to start with the basics. How does the body even power itself? I mean, think about everything else in your life. Your car needs fuel, your home needs power. Everything in this world runs on energy. The human body, the most incredible system ever designed, works the same way. This is the function of glucose. You see, glucose is like cash for your cells. Every cell needs it to think, to move, to heal, even to grow. And without that steady flow of energy currency, the entire system slows and eventually stops. That's why we need glucose, as without it, the body's functions become impaired. Now, this is kind of the wild part because in type 2 diabetes, the body is full of glucose. It's literally swimming in fuel, and there's no shortage of it at all. But the cells, the engines, the little power plants doing all the work, they can't access this fuel. It's starvation in the middle of a feast. Imagine sitting at a table. It's full of food, and yet you're still hungry because all of the food is sealed in a safe, but the lock is jammed. That's what's happening inside of millions of bodies right now. So how does this even happen anyway? Well, we can understand the entire mechanism with a very simple picture: a key and a lock that have gotten rusty. Normally, it's a beautiful symphony when the body is working well. You eat, and then step one begins. Your pancreas releases insulin. That's the key. This key is supposed to fit perfectly into the locks on your cells, which would open the door, and glucose would flow inside, energy is made, and life happens. But in type 2 diabetes, however, we get to step 3, where the locks are rusty, they stop responding to the key, and we get to step 4. That's the core of the problem: insulin resistance. Not sugar, but insulin resistance. Okay, let's picture it another way. Your bloodstream is a highway. Glucose molecules are the delivery trucks, and your cells are the neighborhoods waiting for supplies. If the off-ramps, the insulin receptors, are blocked, those trucks end up sitting in a traffic jam. Gridlock, chaos, high blood sugar. And meanwhile, the neighborhoods, the cells, are starving for fuel. You see, there's fuel everywhere, energy nowhere. It is a complete breakdown in the traffic flow. So what creates this collapse? You see, your genes may load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. A diet that is packed with refined carbs and unhealthy fats overwhelms the whole system. No movement means your muscles, one of the body's biggest glucose users, stops asking for fuel. In fact, we know that muscles, which are actively contracted through movement, even as simple as going outside and taking a walk, can increase glucose uptake by anywhere from 500 to 1,000%, much more than muscles which are not actively being contracted through movement or exercise. And by the way, we know that this is irrespective to how much insulin is circulating. This is why taking a walk after a meal is crucial, and what is referred to as a digestive walk can be very helpful for those who are looking to get their blood sugars in a reasonable range. On the bottom half of this picture, this diagram here, we see that chronic stress is also a major damaging factor in type 2 diabetes because it can raise hormones that block insulin. And of course, on the bottom right, you guessed it, poor sleep is a major disruptor to the body's entire rhythm. And the unfortunate thing is one pressure after another and then another, boom, you've got a perfect formula for insulin resistance. And this is a vicious cycle. Here's the sneaky and downright shocking part. Once insulin resistance starts, it becomes a vicious self-progressing cycle. You see, the cells, once they start to resist insulin, this means that the pancreas begins to shout louder. It pumps out more insulin, and that extra insulin ends up causing the body to store more fat. This increase in fat storage ends up increasing inflammation, and that inflammation does guess what? It makes the cells even more resistant to insulin. Around and around it goes, down and down the spiral goes, worse and worse things continue to get. It is a feedback loop that leads to an unimaginably long list of complications, each ending in one or more of the following: severe pain, loss of mobility, loss of sight or other senses, heart issues, and worst of all, death. Not to mention all the time, attention, and money that has to be poured into this disease, that this disease demands from the individuals that it plagues. That is why our goal isn't to manage type 2 diabetes. Our goal is to locate and completely eradicate the root cause. So shifting slightly to see the effects of high blood sugar, we can actually zoom in on an even deeper microscopic level. You see, all of that sugar that's floating around in the blood creates what's called oxidative stress. And I like to think of this as rust on the inside of the body. You see, unstable molecules can end up bumping into everything. DNA, proteins, membranes, they end up scratching, tearing, and damaging the body from the inside. And that damage spreads as something called chronic inflammation throughout the entire body, literally wreaking havoc all over. And don't worry if you're not too familiar with these terms. We're going to have plenty of videos covering these topics in future segments. So make sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned for more. But this oxidative stress, this is what tears down and wears down the organs over time. And the effects of your body rusting from the inside out is pretty scary. Okay, so we've covered the introduction to type 2 diabetes, and we can switch gears now because type 1 diabetes is a bit of a different story. You see, if type 2 diabetes is like a rusty lock, then type 1 is like a broken key manufacturer. Now, one thing I do want to make clear, we are starting to find out that early lifestyle and diet choices, as well as prenatal lifestyle and diet choices, play a role in the progression of this disease. You see, it's caused by an autoimmune condition. The body's defense system makes a mistake and attacks the beta cells, the insulin factories. So the key-making factory just shuts down. Now, in type 1, the problem is the absence of insulin. There's no key being produced at all. In type 2 diabetes, however, the problem is resistance to insulin. The key is present, but the locks are jammed. You see, there are two very different roads, but they lead to the same destination: high blood sugar. And because those insulin-producing cells are now gone, type 1 cannot be reversed. So, unless addressed very early on in life, during prenatal stages, then our goal changes as it relates to type 1 diabetes. It's no longer about reversal, it's about mastery. A moment-by-moment partnership between insulin therapy and lifestyle, matching the body's natural rhythm as closely as possible, so that a type 1 diabetic only requires as much insulin as a very healthy pancreas would need to produce, because their lifestyle and diet choices are already keeping their blood sugar levels stable. The right diet, intentional movement and muscle activation, even in simple walks after a meal, establishing a period of rest each 7 days that bring reductions of cortisol and dramatic improvements of stress management. All of these lifestyle changes benefit people with or without diabetes, and they give us back the power over this dangerous, damaging, and debilitating disease. So, since poor management in type 1 or type 2 diabetes comes with real danger, we're talking blood sugar crashes, sky-high blood sugar spikes, nerve damage, kidney strain, eye damage, this is why understanding this disease matters. This is why mastery matters. But what about the stage before diabetes? You see, long before type 2 is ever diagnosed, the body sends us warning signs, clear signs, but silent signs. This stage is called prediabetes. The yellow light on your dashboard, it's blinking, it's flashing, and it's sending a warning. Now, prediabetes is characterized by an elevation of blood sugar above normal ranges while still being under full-blown diabetic ranges. Insulin resistance has already started, and this means that the system is already struggling. And I love the quote that says, "Ignoring the smoke doesn't stop the fire." The damage is already happening underneath. We're talking inflammation, stress, pressure on the pancreas, but there's hope. At this stage, you can still put the fire out early, the same way we deal with full-blown diabetes. And that brings us back to the most empowering part of this whole journey. You see, we've defined the problem, we've explained the mechanism, now we can talk about the path back home. Because type 2 diabetes and prediabetes are not life sentences. This is a mismatch problem. It's our original biological design facing these modern habits of processed foods, increased diets of saturated fats, and all sorts of other damaging chemicals and things that we put into our bodies. The great news is, though, habits can change. Whole foods restore balance. Movement opens up the cells like a door, allowing glucose to enter. Sleep repairs the system. Stress reduction and observing deliberate rest cycles calms down the hormones. And even modest weight loss immediately improves sensitivity to insulin. Every change shifts the trajectory. Every step restores function. And every decision, ladies and gentlemen, that you make builds momentum. So what if, instead of seeing this diagnosis as failure, you saw it as communication? Your body is simply speaking, calling out to you, saying, "Hey, my systems are jammed. My fuel lines are clogged. I need your help to come back into balance." And that's what this whole message is about, ladies and gentlemen. Not guilt or fear, not looking to shame, but about power. The power that grows from understanding, from clarity, and from knowing that you can change. Because our bodies were designed with the ability to heal, to adapt, to restore balance when we work with the body's intelligent design and the laws governing its design. So until next time, we're excited to continue on this journey of health with you. Stay subscribed for more, as we're going to have tons of content coming out just like this every single day. We appreciate all of you who've made it to the end of this video. If you liked the video, then don't forget to like the video, and we'll see you next time. Be great as nothing else pays.